Welcome to Interior Analysis. I'm Evan Westman,
I'm Jelani T. Kelly.
I'm Angel Michelli.
and today we are joined by one of the hosts of the Beyond the Screenplay podcast, Tricia Aurand.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, and welcome to the show. So we weren't expecting to actually have anyone on as a guest for this, but when I sent you our list of what we're doing, you immediately jumped on Mulan. So I want to go around and get everyone's history and relationship with this movie. But Trisha, let's start with you on that.
Sure, I love Mulan. I've loved it since it came out. I remember going to see it in the theater in 1998. It is 1998, right? And yeah, I was a kid, I would have been, I think, 12 years old then. And I went with my cousins and aunt and uncle. And I remember just having a blast with it. The music's great. It's really exciting. It's actually an action movie, like a really good action movie, which is not that common for like a Disney Renaissance musical. A lot of them are more adventure in sort of feel and tone, but this is like some action. It's a war movie, especially after it hits a midpoint. And so I just really enjoyed it then. And then now, being a parent myself, I have young children. And last year, my older son discovered Mulan and just was so obsessed with it. So I watched it a dizzying number of times. I don't want to actually speculate about the number, but at least several dozen times over the matter of a couple of months last year. And every time I watched it, as a parent, you end up in this seat where you're like, I guess I'll just watch Trolls 2 for the 80th time. I don't know. What is this? But with Mulan, I truly never got sick of it. I truly never got bored. It's a perfect movie, maybe. I don't know. It's definitely a high watermark, even among the Disney Renaissance musicals in the 90s. It's really, really good. And there are so many ways, and I can't wait to talk to you guys about it, but there's just so many ways that it just knocks it out of the park and feels like it maybe even couldn't be made today. Like it feels like it has some thematic teeth to it that these days would be like softened or safer. And it really is kind of edgy for what it is. And I think it's awesome.
Agree with that about the it wouldn't get made with the same quality today. I don't even think it's the times are not conducive to it. I don't know. Disney doesn't have the same sauce now that they did in the 90s in a lot of especially in the Disney Studios animation.
Definitely.
I think Pixar still has their sauce, I think, but the other studio, they kind of lost it. Jelani, let's go to you next.
Yeah, so I've seen this a total of this is my third time seeing it. But the number of times I've listened to "I'll Make a Man Out of You" is countless. So, yeah. And strangely enough, don't attack me in the comments or here, but I've seen Mulan 2 more than this movie because my dad had the DVD and would play it in the car sometimes, and we were in the car a lot. So whatever disc DVD was in there when we were in there, he would just be playing the movie. So yeah, I saw the sequel a lot more. Other notes: the animation for this movie is really good. I was in the from the first frame. It's dope to just watch. And I don't enjoy Mushu this much around this time around as much. He had moments when he was funny, and I don't think anybody could have done a better job than Eddie Murphy, but I didn't realize how much he affects the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Not remembering this movie, I thought going in that it was just going to be a thing where it's you don't realize he's not interacting with the other characters, but no, he's very much there. I thought it was going to be a ghost type situation, but no, he directly affects the plot. And the scene where he alerts the Huns kind of irritated me a bit, and that leads to Mulan getting injured, Army finding out she's a woman, but she never gets angry at him other than the initial glare. Plus, I know it's Disney, but from a world building standpoint, I would have preferred if we would have known we'd have a talking dragon and ghosts a little slightly earlier in the movie, because we have a full song. We meet Mulan's family, we know the villain all by that point in the movie, so then we just have ghosts and a talking dragon 15 minutes into the movie. I'm oh, okay.
It's probably later, actually, because
Yeah.
it's at the
Yeah.
break into 2, basically. It's probably 20, 25 minutes into the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That's my initial notes.
Okay, Angel.
Yeah, so I really like this movie. I didn't really grow up with this movie too much because I feel like I was kind of like Jelani. Like a lot of what I watched was just kind of like what was around. So we had like VHSs and like DVDs of particular movies. So I watched Lion King a lot. I think I watched Aladdin a lot, Beauty and the Beast, stuff like that. But like this one, I definitely saw it as a kid, but I don't remember when or how that even happened. And then a few years ago, I was editing a video for like an internship I was doing, so I had to watch this like 15 times straight. And so it's been since then that I have watched this. But like rewatching it now, I thought like, okay, I know the entire thing already. But no, it was actually a lot of fun. I did enjoy Mushu, Jelani, but I think it's because I haven't seen Mushu in a little bit and I thought it was fun. But you're right, he actually does affect the plot like a lot more than I remembered, which is weird because he only talks to another character whilst in disguise,
Right.
which I think is really funny. Like he only interacts with Mulan, but at the same time he is driving most of what's happening, and it definitely like it surprised me. But I think in a way it was kind of cool because it means that like the little bits of magic that are in there do affect the story, but it wasn't enough where that's the only element driving the story, which I appreciated. Like, it really is Mulan and her mission and what she wants to do, and I thought that was really cool. I also thought this balanced, which I'll get into a little more when we get into the main discussion, but it balanced the tone really well with like the comedy and the action. And it really is like an action movie with like really good animation, like surprisingly solid for the time, like way more than I was expecting. So I appreciated that, and yeah.
Okay. We never owned this, but somehow I think I've probably seen this more than any other Disney movie. I think we just borrowed it from friends and rented it like so much that like I probably hadn't seen this movie in a decade until this rewatch, and I forgot just like how much of it I have memorized or close to memorized. And yeah, like Jelani, Mushu didn't work for me as much this time, and I don't hold it against it because I loved Mushu as a kid. So like, and that's who it's there for. So like, it's not surprising that like it doesn't hit the same. It probably shouldn't. Yeah, I also finally got around to watching Mulan too, and it's fine. I'm not mad at it. No, it's. I really have nothing like good or bad to say. I was just like, yeah, this is. I mean, it's a direct to DVD sequel, like, and for that, it's like, yeah, it's there. It's not nearly as good, but I'm not mad at it.
It's a movie.
Yeah, it's there. It's a 2.5 out of 5.
It's not the worst of the direct to DVD sequels. I do want to say that also, because I hadn't watched any of them until last year when my son was going on this like journey, not just with Mulan. He did the same thing with Tarzan. He did the same thing with The Lion King. Like he goes through like couple month phases of everything. And then he wants all the content of that thing. So I watched the like Tarzan sequel. I watched the Lion King sequels. Like I've seen all the content. And it's definitely Mulan 2 is fine. They at least have the voices back.
Mm-hmm.
Like at least all the voices are there. So, you know, and the music's not, it's all very tolerable for the most part.
Yeah.
Which is the worst though?
Oh, no. I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
That's a trap.
That's a whole hour-long discussion. I am curious, though.
I am too, but I'm not gonna put myself through that.
No.
I think the only one I've seen aside from Mulan 2 is I think Lion King 1.5. Oh no, Return of Jafar. I saw that one too. But like,
Oh yeah,
Return
Return
of
of Jafar. Oh,
Multiple Aladdin sequels. Yike. King of Thieves. I've seen
yeah. There
that
were like
1
4.
times.
No, I'm wrong.
I
There
think
were
there
like
were
2.
only. I think there were 2.
2
Yeah.
sequels, so there's 3 in all.
Yeah.
But yeah, wow.
Honestly, I'd take those over the live action remakes, though. Like, I think they're at least making something new with the sequels. They might not
True.
be good, but like
Yeah.
they're not dumping $200 million into them.
This is a fun tangent. Should we go there?
You know, we almost were. I started watching the live-action Mulan remake because I was going to bring it up in this episode. I got 25 minutes in and I stopped. I couldn't do it. I did
Yeah.
not enjoy it.
Yeah,
It's just, it's a whole different movie. It makes no sense. that this is what they translated it to. And there's different characters too. Like they turn Li Shang into two different people. They add in a villain. It doesn't make any sense.
It's basically a red flag for me if you enjoy that movie. Like it's so close to be like
We will not be friends.
We will not be friends. Like you got to have a lot to make up for. Like you got to have a fantastic personality otherwise if you like that movie, because like I have never been in so much pain. Like I was like in physical pain watching that the one time I did. For those of you who haven't seen it, just like do yourselves a favor and never subject yourself to it, because it just destroys the soul of the original in like the worst way.
Yeah, if you ever think to yourself, I should watch the live action Mulan, just take a minute and put on the original Mulan again. Like that's probably the best thing to do, actually.
Truly. Yeah. And it's weird too, because like you could have made a good like remake of Mulan that was a little bit more of like an actual war movie. Like it was one that before it came out, I was like, this is a little bit more justified. You could kind of do something different with it, but not what they did. Not what they did.
Yeah, no. And also Mulan herself is just written with so much less personality in the live action for some reason. I don't even know how that could have happened. Like you could just write her similarly to the character and then just change like her interactions tonally based on what you're going for in the movie, like make it more of a war movie. They didn't do that. Like she's not an overly comedic character in the actual movie either. Like she's not like making joke constantly, like anything like that. Like there was an easy way to do this and they just didn't.
Yeah, well, in the original, she is essentially the straight man to Mushu, who's the comic foil, right? And there is some comedy in Mulan being kind of bad at being a soldier, right? Which she is and should be. That's part of the character journey. We can get to this, but it's like, yeah, she doesn't have to be, in some way fumbling or otherwise like cracking jokes. She doesn't have to have like a big sense of humor about everything, but she does have to have character consistency and definable traits that are then interesting and charming and can carry a movie. Instead of just being good at fighting. Yeah. They just
good at bicycle kicking arrows at people. That's her one personality trait, is good at bicycle kicking sharp things at people. Trait.
Yeah.
No, it's not, but that's what they substituted.
Let's talk about Mulan.
Let's. Tricia, you wanted to start with, or one of the topics you brought, you wanted to talk about Mulan's arc. And it's a very good character arc, so you can start off with that if you want.
Sure. I mean, this dovetails in perfectly with what is my favorite part of the experience of watching Mulan, because she has such a wonderfully defined and interesting collection of character traits. So when we meet her at the beginning, she is writing notes on her arm, right? She's going to go see the matchmaker. Her memory is not great. And so she's a little bit messy. And then she's late for her chores. So she's rushing out there. But when we see what she does when she's late for her chores, she takes the bone and the stick, ties it onto the dog with the sack of grain to feed the chickens. So the first thing that we see that her doing is she's inventive. She's taking things around her, repurposing them in a creative way and in a spur of the moment way. This isn't like a calculated thing. We don't get the sense that she's done it before. She's just grabbing what's around her, using it because it's handy, and thinking about it in a different way to achieve what she needs to do, which is her chores, feeding the chickens in the morning. This is so clearly rendered in the first 2 seconds after meeting Mulan. And it's her whole thing for the entire rest of the movie. It's what we see her doing again and again with, it comes back later with the weights that she uses to climb to the top of the pole during the training sequence. It comes back later when she uses the fan, which is the best moment ever in the finale, where she uses the fan to grab Shan Yu's sword from him. She's taking an object, using it in an inventive way, and being essentially like scrappy and quick on her feet and clever and using that to solve her problems. And we see it so consistently. That's character consistency. And it's a wonderfully thought out thing to give the character because she's a woman who is about to be a soldier. So she will not be able to use her physical strength or size to be a good soldier. She has to be quick thinking. She has to have another trait that makes her great at being a soldier. And it, of course, is the same trait that makes her think to use the cannon in a different way, to start the avalanche. It's just good character writing. And you know it's good character writing because you don't even realize it's happening. It's so effortlessly done. We see it right there at the beginning. And also, like, it just comes naturally out of the character. It's reinforced and reinforced in a way throughout the movie. And no one is sitting there going, you know what, Mulan? You're really inventive. Mulan, you're always thinking about how to use stuff differently. Like, that's what bad writing is. Good writing is it renders it clearly in the character action and never, ever, ever needs to be said in dialogue. It's just that the writers clearly understand that this is the design of the character. So that's thing number one about the character design. And then the thing number two is the arc, right? Like, so you start the character off with the skill that is not going to change and is only going to like grow and evolve with her. That doesn't need to be changed. It's not part of the flaw. Then you have to design the flaw. So what is the issue that Mulan is grappling with? And it's interesting. I wouldn't necessarily characterize this as being like a movie with a flat arc, but in some ways it is, because what ends up changing around Mulan is the world around her.
Right.
She has to make her peace with the fact that maybe she's not going to fit in the world. And that is a journey, right? Like, she wants her outside. We hear it in the This Is What I Want song. She wants her outside to match her inside. And she does kind of discover that along the way. But really, it's just like, I want the world to be different than it is. And then realizing maybe it can be different than it is, but it's okay if it isn't, right? Like, that might not actually be the case. I might not be able to bring honor to my family being who I am. And that does, we see that being moved along by inches. But then the other thing that we see change is the world around her. And that's just really beautiful to see this, a woman who does not fit in and doesn't ultimately really change much about herself except making her peace with who she is and her place in the world, but not dramatically changing. And it's just really sharply observed and beautifully done.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, because I put flaws in quotes. It's not really
Sure.
about her flaws. It's about her not fitting in the world shown in the beginning, and it's further emphasized by songs like, well, the song Reflections, and her seeing her flaws drives her character decision to join the army in place of her father. And then her resourcefulness ends up taking out most of the Huns, nearly saving all of China right there. And by the end, she used her flaws to save the day. Value system gets in the way a bit, and it's a whole other topic. Gets in the way a bit as she is still seen as a woman in this culture by the end, so she has to resort to her resourcefulness, which we've seen as consistent throughout the movie, and the connects she made with her friends along the way in the army to save China. But I was gonna ask everybody here if you saw her having any flaws, and I don't think that's it. I think it's what Tricia said about her flaws being her not fitting in.
They're not even so many much flaws as they are like differences from society and like quirks even, where it's like they would be considered flaws there, but to us you could tell like they're just like she's had to adapt to being different from the other people around her, especially like her parents and her grandmother, who she spends most of her time with. And like the matchmaker sequence is a very good like microcosm of all of that. It's a good character introduction for that reason, because as much as every time she tries to fit in, she winds up having to improvise some kind of way out of some trouble, even if it's not something that she caused or like something she's involved in, but like there's no other way for her to fix it. But she can't just like sit there either, which I appreciated. And I never thought about like that improvisational personality trait to her as much, because I feel like that's very common now for a lot of characters in similar like a lot of protagonists in similar positions to have like that kind of like DIY type style of like solving all these issues and stuff, like when they can't physically or generally do the same kind of things as they think that other people can do. You know what I mean? So I think that's become pretty common, but this was made, back in 1998. This is probably where a lot of that started, which is kind of cool. And I can definitely appreciate that. And it also makes it more entertaining to watch her, like, sort of, because she really is solving all of these things
Mm-hmm.
on her own. Like, she can't rely on anybody else. Like, even with, like, Mushu as her friend and companion, like, he's causing more problems than he is helping her solve them. And she just kind of has to work around that. At the same time, none of her allies are, like, a hindrance to that either. Like, she can still be improvisational, still work things out on her own, but all of her companions around her still add a level of like entertainment value and companionship to her story and what's going on. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed that part.
Mm.
I think something I noticed this time was how in Act One she really is trying like to do well with the matchmaker, and like her, again in quotes, flaws are not really like, they don't come from a lack of effort. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
there's a way you could construct this character where she's just kind of being angsty, and like she doesn't necessarily really want to like be brought to this matchmaker, but she's not resisting either. Like I think it's important that she's trying her best to like do what she needs to for her family, and that makes it a lot stronger, especially like that leading into reflection makes it stronger, I think, because she's basically like done her absolute best and she's still not cutting it here. I won't like spend too much time on this, but I was trying to like do a pretty like comprehensive reading of this movie like through the lens of gender, and I won't bring that up too much here, but did notice that like the act structure here is kind of perfectly divided into like Act 1 she's trying and failing to perform femininity, Act 2 she tries to perform masculinity and ends up kind of succeeding at like meeting the standards that are set out for her in the army, and then Act 3 the mask comes off and she's basically forced to just like be completely herself and break free of the binary. And I think there's a lot more you could go into with that. Like maybe these already exist, but I feel like there's a really good reading to be done of like taking her arc through the lens of just somebody like experimenting and exploring their gender identity. Like I think it offers a lot for that, regardless of like how you read her. I think it can lend itself to a lot of different lenses. And yeah, agree with everything else you guys were saying about like just how well this arc works and how well defined her character is. Like there's something about just like this era of Disney, and Pixar I think does this well too. They are just so efficient at like, here's this character, right? Like they just have fantastic intro scenes for so many people across like their whole filmography.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other things that I love about Mulan is that she's not an archetype we've seen before, really, right? Think about the less interesting versions of this character. And you mentioned one just there about like an angsty, rebellious girl who like doesn't want to be a girl and isn't going to try. And that's not this. And that would be more of like a trope or a convention. It would feel more familiar and less interesting to us. At the same time, she's also not really an extrovert. So there's a version of this character that's like chatty, right? And wants to like talk her way into being accepted, or like what she's really good at is like spinning a story or like being, a great conversationalist. And there's that kind of version of the character as well. But she isn't that either, right? She's not like precocious and eager. She actually is very reluctant, and we almost love a reluctant hero more. And she's essentially introverted, right? She really is trying hard not to draw attention to herself most of the time. It's just that the prescribed path that is laid out for her in this world is one that doesn't make any sense to her internally, or doesn't fit with who she sees herself as. And that's just a great construction for the character. And it's, again, to your point, Evan, it's so efficiently set up where the entire opening sequence is designed to like really draw kind of narrow lines, which they should be, right? Like in an animated movie that's, 94 minutes or whatever this is, it needs to put the character so clearly within her boundaries so we know what she's capable of, we know what she wants, we know what she can do, we know what she is not great at, and we know what skills she has to use to succeed in this world and what skills she doesn't have. And I love the little moment in Please Bring Honor to Us All, or I think that song is just called Honor to Us All, but where the two old men are playing that game, right? I think is it Go that they're playing, or a version of it, and she just like moves a piece on the board and like solves the whole puzzle, right? They're both just sitting there like, can we strategize our way out of this? And she just looks at it for a minute and then moves the piece, and the one guy's like, hey. It's just a great little moment. But again, the storytelling is all using every single minute to establish who the character is, while also establishing the value system of the world and what she's bumping up against, which, as your point, is like not just a gender binary, although it's a very specific time and place, maybe purely constructed for this movie, which is probably what it should be, to be honest, right? Like, and we understand, how does a woman in this society bring honor to her family? Honor is the goal of everyone. That's the value system. How can a daughter achieve honor to the family? By bearing sons. So she has to make a good match. She has to bear sons for the army. That's her entire value in this world. And it's funny, this time around, listening to the soundtrack 50 times. I should mention also that when my son is on a kick of something, that's all we listen to in the car as well. So, whew.
Well, there are worse soundtracks out there than this
No,
one.
it's a banger. It's really great. But every single song is about gender. Every single song is about, this is what men are, this is what women are in this society, in our world. It's so fascinating. Like Honor to Us All, Reflections, I'll Make a Man Out of You is literally called I'll Make a Man Out of You. And then A Girl Worth Fighting For.
I've been singing that all week. It's driving me nuts.
Right. And there really are, I think those are the only 4 songs in it. Yeah. But like A Girl Worth Fighting For is also just all about like the value system of the world, the construction of like, what are men? What are women? What are the roles we have to play? I think it's really interesting that Mulan's friends don't quite fit either, right? They're kind of also struggling to perform masculinity or live up to this thing that's being expected of them. And we can get to that later. But yeah, again, it's so efficiently creating the character with the themes, with the world, with the value systems, while also being incredibly watchable and entertaining. It's so good.
I didn't realize, and this hopefully can transition us into the value system topic, because we wanted to talk about that too. There is just so much layered in here in terms of like the theme, and I didn't even really miss it as a kid. Like it's pretty impossible to miss, like you said, with the songs. Like it's pretty blatantly there, but there's also so much nuance to it. Like I also clocked the thing you were mentioning about her 3 friends. They're like, one of them's like kind of short, one of them's overweight, and one of them's like really skinny. They're all kind of like deviant from like traditional like performances of masculinity in some way, and it never like makes a thing out of that, but that feels pretty intentional. Yeah. And like can be read into in some way. And they're even contrasted with like Li Shang as like kind of the like stock image of like what a like masculine person is. I won't like run this topic too much, but I did a video a few years ago about The Devil Wears Prada and the value system there. And
great choice of movie.
It's one of the best. I think it's so underrated. But there were 6 elements that I outlined in that video, and I think they're all present here. You have rules, values, a higher ideal, an authority figure, followers, and Mulan as the outsider. And that's just all here. And I think it gets set up so efficiently in the matchmaker scene at the beginning, and then later when she gets introduced to the army. It's all there. And I think they set up the ultimate rule pretty clearly as well. If Mulan is discovered as a woman, she will be killed. It's a very, like, clear manifestation of the value system with a consequence. So what did you guys have on that?
The values are laid out from the very beginning with what is expected of Mulan as a woman in this culture, and how she's supposed to adjust herself to the system. Men, even the elderly and sickly, as proven by her father trying to join, are expected to fight for the emperor. And the value of the value system seems to be honor. Well, it's the most highly valued, pretty much above everything else, other than, I think the only thing that may beat it is like the emperor's demands or opinion. I think that's the only thing proven by the end that surpasses that.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I think that they emphasize honor as the most important thing, but I think a lot of it kind of goes back to what we were saying before about, I think in this case less about morality and more about like your place in society. Like, they consider it honorable if you're doing what you're told you're supposed to do. So if the man goes off and fights for the army, and if the woman, you know, matches with a man who will like give her children and everything like that. Like, that's kind of what they emphasize more. And then I think over the movie, it does change to an extent, in that Mulan has brought honor to her family by kind of doing all of the opposite of those things. But the ultimate honor turned into, she essentially saved the entire country by going against those things. Now, they don't emphasize that she kind of went against traditional norms and have that be like, oh, well, everybody should do this now. They still make it about specifically her character and like what she's doing, which is also good. I think that's very appreciated. And I do think that they've kind of like, they were kind of hinting at it throughout the rest of the movie in like the kind of people that she surrounds herself with. Like, we were talking about her companions before, how I don't remember all of their names, but there's like the short guy. I think Ping is the Ping or Ling?
Ling is the skinny guy.
It was Ling. Okay, because Ping is her fake name. Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Ling, Yao, and Chen Po.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay, yeah. And I think part of why I liked all of them is they were also kind of reaching to reach like what society expects of them, and they weren't quite getting there. But if you look at like the big guy, he's always very like unapologetically gentle, which I appreciated. Like, he's just the sweetest guy. He's always hugging people. He literally hugs his angry friend until he calms down and is like, better? And he's like, yeah. and that's like, but it shows that like not everybody is sort of getting to this place that society expects of them. And so like Mulan in that sense is not by herself, but they emphasize a lot of that, which I think it shows that like a value system itself is not necessarily everybody's natural state. It's more of like what everybody is expected to get to, and that to an extent everybody kind of fails. You know, I'm sure there's like underlying elements to that with like Li Shang too, because if I'm remembering his backstory correctly, I'm pretty sure his dad was like was a general, so he was kind of expected to be this big like masculine tough guy who is like capable of perfectly leading his army. But we can tell that's not really the case just from like little things that are implied. Like, as good of a fighter as he is and as good of a leader as he is, there's no perfect way to do anything. And he is leading sort of this motley crew of soldiers that don't necessarily know what they're doing. So he also has a lot of these big expectations on him. So I think they make it a lot more layered than you would initially think it would be, than as simply as like, oh, bring your family honor. But there's a lot more to that than people understand, and they do it without over explaining it, which I like.
How different do you think this movie would have been if, because it doesn't feel like the value system changes by the end. Do you think it would have been or how different of a movie do you think it would have been if by the end the value system changed?
Well, I think that would have been probably a a lot to accomplish in a short amount of time to change the value system of China back in the day. But
All of China.
I do think that's signaled, right, in the finale where everyone bows down to her, right? Like it's the ultimate signal of like maybe there is another way, signified by this person. I like that it leaves it ambiguous, like, you know, what is going to happen. Will there be a place for her in the army? You know, the emperor tries to put her on his council and then she says she just wants to go home. So I think they do like just not, you know, they kind of just don't chase it out to, you know, more of like a grand world shift or something. But I do think there's a hint of that. What I was going to say is that I really love that you guys have identified the way that the value system is expressed in all the tertiary characters and they're wrestling with it and with the themes, right? Which are just basically where everyone bumps up against the value system. But what I love is in the Honor to Us All song, Mulan is praying to the ancestors, right? Like, help me bring honor to my family tree, specifically keep my father standing tall. And so there's her relationship with her dad is also a really big part of this. And it's how we see Mulan interacting with him, where again, more nuance is brought to the value system. If when Mulan failed at the matchmakers, her father was like, you are dead to me, you will never bring our family honor, like you have to change everything about yourself, it would reinforce the value system in a way that is just, again, less interesting or less comfortable. But we have to see that there is hope for this, right? Again, there's this individual within it, her father, and how he relates to her. And so obviously one of the most beautiful scenes in the whole movie is the one early on. So efficiently done. It's like 4 sentences long where they're sitting under the tree with the blossoms. And he just says, what beautiful blossoms we have this year. Look, this one's late, but I bet that when it blooms, it will be the rarest and most beautiful of all. That's that entire scene. There's no other dialogue in that scene. And it's all metaphor. But it's so lovely how her father has not given up hope for her. And he's not disappointed that she has not lived up to the value system. Now, there's still an expectation that she will someday, right? He says this one's late. So there's like a someday you will have to do this. But it's still loving. It's still care. It's like an acknowledgement of her for being, allowing her to be an individual and not have to like have succeeded immediately in that. And of course, that scene is then like sort of mirrored in the scene at the dinner table following that, where she's like, you shouldn't have to go fight. There are other young men to fight for China. And he just stands up and says, I know my place. It's time you learned yours. So we get the push and pull from her father. He loves her. He cares about her. He sees and respects her individuality. He is also bound by the value system of the world. And so he feels like an ally for her while at the same time feeling like an expectation to live up to. In the same way that Shang's father is, right? We see that the general like cares for his son, wants him to succeed, but also there is an expectation there. And then when, you know, he ultimately finds out his father has died in the battle, and so there's even greater weight on him there to live up to that specific legacy. So the movie is very smart at using the father characters to embody the hopes and the expectations of Mulan and of Shang. And that also, such good writing, that also reinforces why these two people would share a connection with each other, because we see that they also are struggling with similar things. They have these difficult relationships where it doesn't necessarily come easily to them to, you know, make their fathers proud, but that is something they desperately want. I have no bigger pet peeve in a movie than when there's like a love story that's shoehorned in that's based on nothing. It's like, what would these two characters possibly connect over? It has to be something material, and it has to be in the script, in the text of the movie. And it is here, even though the love story is so subsumed under everything else because there's so much other work the movie has to do. And I love that it's not the main focus, but it's there in the text, and there's a reason for it. There's a reason for these two people to be able to like see each other clearly in a way that no one else does.
That's a really good point about the fathers, because that makes me realize why the ending scene with Mulan and her father hit so hard,
So
because
good.
that almost got me, man. I'm gonna be honest. That
Every
almost got
time.
me,
I cry
because
every time. I've seen it 50 times.
yeah,
It's
that
so
because
great.
she's here like handing him like physical objects like to prove like I brought honor to the family, and he's like, I don't give a damn about any of that. Like, I'm just glad to have my daughter back. Like that. Oof.
The animation on the character's face, like his expression when he's looking at her when she's going through this whole speech, and then the sound of the clank as he like drops the objects on the ground to grab her is just, it's like burned into my brain. It's so beautiful.
The relationship with her and her dad reminded me so much this time of the relationship with Miles and his dad in Spider-Verse. Like
Mm.
Hmm.
it's two examples of like I think they have a couple more scenes together in that movie, but I think I when we talked about it, I brought up how I love how efficient it is, and that's like true here too. They only have maybe 3 or 4 scenes that are probably maybe 90 seconds at most, and like you said, one of them is one character talking 4 lines, and it does so efficient work, but it also balances them so well so that like when there's like that break and their last conversation is them fighting, it's like, oh man, like what if she does die, like that's gonna hurt even more because they ended like they left each other on such a low note. But they've also given us enough, like shown us the care in this relationship that when it is mended in that last scene, it's completely believable.
Mhm.
And ditto for all of that to how Spider Verse does it. But that's
Mhm.
not what this episode is.
Yeah.
I think it's also why the ending itself doesn't fall flat, because I think what a lot of modern movies would try to do is like the movie would be about changing the entire value system. But in this case, Mulan's motivations have always been about protecting her family and like taking care of them. And you see that in one of those very short scenes with her father. Like one of the first, I think the first interaction actually she has with her father
Oh
is like
yeah.
making sure he drinks his tea like the doctor said to. Like she's not like one of several children. She's their only child. So much of what she does is to try to do all of her chores efficiently and take care of her parents and her grandmother, especially her dad, and like make sure that they're actually taking care of themselves, which I think is something that a lot of like older children and only children can relate to. That's been her whole motivation, which makes it make sense when she tells the emperor, "Listen, I just want to go home," because all she's ever really wanted is to bring honor to her family and like essentially keep them safe, which is the whole reason why she pretends to be a man to go into the army and like take her dad's place, because she knows full well my dad is like old and he's not going to make it if he goes. That is why this whole thing hits so hard for me, is because like it does manage to challenge the value system, but at the same time it is a specific character arc for this character, which is why the movie itself feels so personal rather than making it more of just like a widespread thing with like a stock character put in there. Like no, Mulan's a real person with
Yeah.
real drive and motivation, and that's what they emphasize in all of these scenes.
For sure. Yes, absolutely. And one of the scenes that I love the most in the opening act is, again, it's really short. It's, I don't know, maybe 20 seconds long and there's no dialogue. It's when she's watching her dad practice with his armor and his sword. He gets the sword out of the cupboard, and we see his background and experience having come from the military himself, and Mulan sees as he is, basically struck again by this old injury, and he's hurt. He falls. We hear the clatter of the sword being dropped, and she knows that he will for sure get injured. Then it's followed by the scene at the dinner table where he puts her in her place or tells her she needs to learn her place. And then there's no more dialogue. It's all so richly visual. Like there's no more dialogue. We see her go out into the courtyard. She's crying. It's raining. She sees her parents arguing through a screen, right? So we see just their shadows. We're reading their body language, just like Mulan is. And we realize that her mom is basically upset because she knows that it's going to be the last time she probably sees her father, right? And then they blow the candle out. We see Mulan's face and the decision. Then we get that awesome piece of music for the
It's so
montage.
good.
It's so good even now. And like, I love the animation in that entire sequence. It's so beautifully done, where we just know what she's going to do. We see the cupboard doors open, we see the armor, then we see the curtains blowing, the hair. Like, it's just, we know instantly what Mulan is going to do. And then we see it all play out. It's just so powerful. And the symbolism, she puts the comb, she takes the conscription notice. It's like so good. That's just what
The sword
storytelling.
and the reflection in the sword shot.
Oh, so amazing. Yeah.
Disney needs to bring back this sauce. It's so good.
Yeah, it is.
To answer your question from a couple minutes ago, Jelani, with like, how would it change if like Mulan did, like if it was more like full flat art character where the world around Mulan like is changed more by her? It makes me think of a couple of things. So I finally read the poem that this is based on. It's quite short. It's like maybe 3 minutes to read. And when I like found that on like the website that I found it on, there was a little bit that talked about like there's debate about like whether the original poem is like pro or anti patriarchy, because on one hand people were like, well, it's against it because it's proving that like women should be allowed to join the army, that like this binary is like it should be broken and shouldn't be like exist in the way that society has it. But the other side of it was arguing like, well, she's doing it all for the service of her father, who's the patriarch of her family. So you could kind of read like in adapting the poem, they kind of could have taken either reading of that. I'm not sure if they really commit to one or the other, but I think Angel, one of you made a point of like if she goes through all this change and like understands who she is, comes to like a more realized identity, society might not be receptive to that. And that was again something I thought of like reading this through like a lens of someone exploring their gender identity. She might come to like accept herself, but that doesn't matter at all in context of this is still what's expected of her in society. And yeah, I think one of you said it leaves it ambiguous. I was thinking about another way you can do like a story with a strong value system is something like V for Vendetta, where your outsider character is bringing down the system and like actively fighting against the value system that's there. And that's not really the kind of outsider that Mulan is, because she still is like trying to act in service of the higher ideal of China. And like she is not against the emperor. She saves his life at the end. She is essentially fighting for the status quo, but is still an outsider to it. So I think it would kind of be like there's a version of this movie that could do it, but I think it would be a little bit disingenuous. There are other stories that I think do that work, but it does kind of find a middle ground, and I'm kind of surprised how well it works, because it doesn't really commit one way or the other with like this value system might be in the exact same place tomorrow after the movie ends. Like it kind of doesn't care by the end, or at least doesn't show that it cares.
Well, I think in a way what you're talking about is they kind of do it in the Hunger Games, right? Where the motivation for Katniss is very similar to this, where her whole motivation's like protecting her family. It's obviously in a very different context, but then what they do later in the story is they then turn her into a freedom fighter and into this symbol that she doesn't necessarily want to be, but she does it anyway, because that's kind of where the story is pushing her forward to. Whereas with this, the ending kind of still shows Mulan being true to like her own motivations, where she does just want to go home and protect her family. And they don't, like, I think the way that they end things off, they imply that like society might be getting pushed in this direction, but it's not necessarily there yet, and it's not necessarily going to wind up being Mulan's responsibility. I don't know what the sequel does, because I haven't seen it.
It really doesn't do much with it.
It doesn't do much with it, right? Yeah, so like I like that that's where they went here, instead of the version it's like, oh well, like we can have them have their own motivations at first, but eventually it's going to get to this whole changing society thing, which is a lot to put onto one person, and just from a writing standpoint, to put onto one character, where it can
Or to
kind of
one
start to
movie.
feel.
Also,
Yeah,
like, this is,
one
it's
movie,
a
or even
massive
one trilogy of
societal
movies.
problem.
Like, it's a lot. It's a lot, and like it can work. Like, I think for the most part, The Hunger Games works, but this, I think, is sort of a better. Like, there's a reason I think like this handles similar subject matter better, because again, it's not turning them into this sort of stock character who's essentially just there to be the hero. They are still their own person with their own motivations, and like that's something I think I appreciate more than turning them into
A symbol.
like, yeah, exactly, turning them into a symbol, especially when they were already their own very unique character in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Hunger Games is a good comparison.
totally. I think it's really interesting that Shan Yu, our bad guy here, doesn't have an opinion on like patriarchy. He seems not in any
anything.
way,
Except
or
being
anything.
evil, I think.
Right? Yeah, super evil. Yeah, it's interesting, when it's revealed to him that Mulan is the one who took away his victory in the mountains and that she is in fact a woman. What he says is the soldier from the mountains. He doesn't say like, you're a girl, we were defeated by a girl.
For all we know,
Dishonor-
he's a radical feminist.
He seems like, I don't know, he seems very
He might be. We don't know what
We
his
don't
home
know.
life is like.
Yeah, I mean it is there. We see that there are no women in the Han army. I will say that. So it's not like, which
Yeah.
again, don't talk
Another
to me
thing
about
that
the
the
live
sequel
action.
does.
I truly can't.
Or not the sequel, yeah.
Yeah.
Mullen.
Oh, are you talking
So-
about the lady who turns into a bird?
Yeah, or
His
whatever.
hawk
Yeah.
was actually a witch bird. Anyway, but it's interesting that it's not a part of the design of the antagonist. So in some ways, the antagonist is just this like external evil force that is putting pressure on Mulan and the value system and forcing the events of the plot to happen within the army. They don't really represent anything in terms of like theme. The antagonist is actually not there with a take on the theme. Like, think about an antagonist like Thanos or someone who's like there to, do soliloquies about what he believes in and stuff. Shan Yu is not that. Shan Yu is not here for that. Shan Yu just really wants to kidnap the emperor and rule China, I guess, by kidnapping the emperor. That's his big plan. He seems to have 12 soldiers sometimes. Other times he has several
I was
thousand
thinking that he
soldiers.
has like
one
no
can tell.
people there, but then they also fight a huge army that comes out of the snow like ghosts.
Also, yeah, the size of the armies in this movie are wild.
It happened with China's army too a few
I know,
times.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
How
like
many
sometimes
soldiers
sometimes
do
they
you
have like
have?
10 people because it's one company, and then other times it's like, oh, this is everybody. Everybody's here.
This
It's
is
like, but they're
all of
not,
the whole
though.
army.
You definitely
Uh,
didn't have this many soldiers 10 minutes ago.
It's cartoon logic. There's
Yeah.
definitely some cartoon logic here. But anyway, I do think it's interesting. It would be really easy and feel cheesy and corny too for Shan Yu to be like, women, no, I also personally hate women doing things. And I'm glad it doesn't go that way. I think it's, he maybe speaks to Mulan directly twice. He doesn't speak to her at all when he thinks she's a soldier, right? There's some personal rage when she starts the avalanche and he wounds her. And then when she throws her shoe at him and he realizes that she's the soldier from the mountains, he says, the soldier from the mountains. And then at the very end, they get up on that roof together and he says, it looks like you're out of ideas. So it's really interesting. That's the only time in the text that her inventiveness, her like quick thinking and resourcefulness is acknowledged in the text as being her greatest strength. And weirdly, Shan Yu has figured it out in interacting with her maybe just a couple times. But again, none of that is gendered, right? Like his malice toward her is personal, but it's not gendered. And I think that's really interesting. And I think that actually reinforces a lot of the value system and the internal themes and the internal character journey that's happening for Mulan. Again, it's not about, he doesn't represent something else. He just is there as an antagonist in like a very practical, like logistical way.
Honestly, and I was thinking about how corny it would be if he said something about women don't belong in the army or something like that. But
You guys cheated, guys. You're not allowed. I win.
I think it's because the army she's fighting with is doing it enough.
Sure.
Like I don't think it would have been so much worse if they layered him being oh god, the word escapes me.
Sexist?
Misogynist sexist on top of that, like, yeah.
And
like everything about their interaction is totally based on his actual interactions with her as opposed to his assumptions, which in a way is kind of cool.
And I do like, you said the army that she's fighting with is doing it enough. And visually, his army is also doing it, right? We see that they're these big, hulking men. Half of them don't have their shirts on, despite it being winter, whatever time of year it is.
They're just Zack Snyder characters.
Don't even get me started.
They're looking, and there are no women in that army. And the way that they ultimately defeat them and get to the Emperor is by dressing up like women, right? So there is like a gendered component to it. It's not in the dialogue, but it is being like, it is a part of the relationship of China's army, which is made up of, by the end, right, which is made up of Mulan and her friends dressed like women, and their army, and who's visually guarding the door when they're trying to get to the Emperor. So it is in there. It's just like not being made much of.
Yeah, there's a lot of like interpretation that is like, especially that symbol of like, I noticed this time, like, you have them climbing the pole dressed as women, and like climbing the pole was kind of presented as like the way to achieve like ideal masculinity before. So I don't quite know what to make of it, but it's definitely like pointing at something. There's also a lot of,
I don't know about that. Sorry, I want to take umbrage with that. I don't think that the climbing of the pole is masculinity. The climbing of the pole is Mulan's inventiveness, right? It's about finding an alternative way. It's about thinking, outside of the box. And this is, if nothing else, about thinking outside of a box or a binary.
Well, I think I say that because I think that's how Shang is kind of, well, maybe he's not presenting it in exactly those terms.
That's how they
the
interpret it, I think. The other soldiers
Right.
do initially. And then we
Right.
see that it's actually about the improvisation based on how Mulan solves the problem.
Yeah, it's not how I think the movie is necessarily presenting that action on Mulan's part, but it's sort of like, if being in the army is like the role that men are meant to have in this society, and then Shang presents this challenge as like, here's this impossible task to do, and like by achieving it you are displaying discipline and strength. Like, I might be reading that wrong, but it's just a place where like there is direct value assigned to this action. And there's a lot of places where values are talked about very explicitly in honor to us. And there's not a lot made of it, but they're saying like, here are all of the values we want you to live by. So I might be misreading that, but I think there's a lot that can be unpacked that's layered in here.
For sure.
Did we have more on that topic?
Well, I mean, I think we definitely have other things to talk about, like Mushu, for example. There seems to be some baggage we need to unpack about that.
I don't
Proceed.
No, Evan, you go first.
I didn't really have anything. Just like he just doesn't hit the same as an adult as he did as a kid.
You're the only one who hates Mushu, Jelani, so you gotta go. You gotta go.
I didn't say I hate him. I was just like, that one scene where he alerts the army kind of irritated me, but that was it.
Well, I think it's interesting just thinking about like how I would go about writing this movie if it were me. And once Mulan gets into the army, she personally doesn't kind of have a goal anymore, right? She isn't there to win any medals. She's actually just there to serve and not get caught. And so that doesn't create any kind of ticking clock. Like, we know the Huns are coming and there's probably going to be a battle at some point, but she herself isn't driving towards anything else. She gets there, she passes for a man, for the first few days, the first like whatever. But once it's kind of proved that she can like hold her own with the soldiers, she isn't getting sent packing, as we see in I'll Make a Man Out of You. Then it's just kind of like, well, it introduces this love story, which is an interesting, dramatic question, but we kind of, such a tertiary plot line that there's not really much to do with it. You kind of have to have a character like Mushu who has some other grand design that is pushing Mulan forward, because she herself doesn't have a goal at that point. And it would be kind of unrealistic to create that for her. Like Mulan, it doesn't make any sense for Mulan to steal her father's armor and then go try to win a medal and save all of China. Like that can't be
drawing
her
every bit of
goal.
attention to herself possible.
Exactly right. It can't be her stated goal, especially with the stakes being what they are. And so having a character like Mushu that's working behind the scenes, and it also creates sort of interesting subtext and conflict in their relationship, right? You have a character who is specifically trying to create conflict in Mulan's life and create problems for her because he has his own agenda while also posturing as her friend. Having just a good old-fashioned secret, I mean, it's not a huge secret because it's not a secret from us, but like having a good old-fashioned secret in the relationship, especially throughout the second act, I think is just overall a smart construction. Now, the exact way, I'm not going to defend like Mushu's overall thing because it's quite a big swing and quite a choice for an animal sidekick. But I think it does make sense. You kind of need him or someone like him to be doing this work for dramatic reasons.
That's fair. Yeah, I hadn't really considered that.
They also kind of give him his own little character arc too, because he does have a moment toward the end where he's like, he admits to her like, I only did this for myself, but you're actually doing it for your father. And like, I think in a way that's part of the reason why he is her friend and he does actually want to help her. It's just his own motivations initially were totally based on, him getting his own status back, which in a way is like him trying to get back on top of the own value system that he was already a part of, because he did mess up before and now he's just trying to do better, but he's going at it from a totally selfish lens. So in a way it's cool because it adds another little layer of complexity onto this already complex film that not only doesn't get in the way of the rest of the movie, but actually helps drive the plot forward.
And I would challenge myself and any of you, do any other animal sidekicks from any Disney Renaissance movies have an arc? I mean,
No.
it's
Probably not.
It doesn't,
which is why they irritate me. Actually, I do want to talk about this. They annoy me because there's so many of them and none of them do anything.
They're not real characters. They don't have agency to affect the plot.
They're there to sell toys and plushies.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is fine if there's like 2 of them, right? Maybe. But there's some that have like I think Tangled has like 4.
Oh god, Tangled.
Or something like that. So many. And it gets distracting. This one I think literally only has 3. Mm-hmm. And maybe one of them is unnecessary. But they never get in the way of anything. And it helps that Mushu also talks and like has motivations, is like an actual character. But like when it comes to like just the other animals, they don't make it so that like they have 8 different plushies to sell to kids, because that's what Disney does.
And it's kind of fun that the horse, whose name is Khan, anyway, the horse and Cricky, the cricket, it is cool that they don't like Mushu and Mushu has conflict with them. So like she has 3 animal companions, but they like kind of don't like each other, right? And I think that it's mostly played for comedy, but it makes the scene like more fun, where there's a few more personalities in the mix and a little bit more conflict.
He keeps calling Khan a cow, which I think is funny.
Exactly. It is funny.
I think it's adorable.
Yeah.
Do the mice, I haven't seen Cinderella in forever, but do the mice have arcs? I doubt it. I know they do stuff. I don't think
Probably not.
Arcs.
They do kind of. Yeah, they do kind of. The mice are a huge part of Cinderella. Like, to a degree that you couldn't possibly remember. There's so much of the story is just about like Gus and whatever that other one's name is. We went through a brief Cinderella phase. It was mercifully brief. But like they do have to end. So the stepmother locks Cinderella in her room at the end, and the mice are the ones who have to steal the key and get it up to her and like basically set her free. And they've kind of survived the whole movie by not calling attention to themselves and not taking risks. And they have to basically decide to take this risk to help Cinderella. So it's a pretty good call. There's a little character arc there. They are actual characters. Jacques is the name of the other one. Jacques and Gus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had one more topic I wanted us to get to. We've mentioned it already, but I wanted to talk about how great I'll Make a Man Out of You is. I think this might be the best musical song and best training montage ever. Like, for one thing, it does a lot more work than a lot of other songs, which I don't think is a detriment to other songs, because even if you just take the ones in this movie, like, there's a character arc here, or like a character change at least within the song, and you shouldn't have that for something like Reflection or Honor to Us All, because that's not what those songs are there to do. They are there to, like, just establish the world and establish this character wound. There's just so many things that I think make this work really well. Like, in some ways, it's exactly the same as, like, a Rocky style training montage, but it has this character moment at the center of it, and it basically lets the song have a 3-act structure where Act 1, they all suck at the tasks. Act 2, they're struggling to improve. You have the crisis moment when Mulan is sent home. And then Act 3, she inspires the rest of the army to get better. And I was thinking about, like, how would you do that sequence if it wasn't a montage or if it wasn't a musical number? It'd still probably be good, but, like, the visuals, I think, could carry it on their own, but it wouldn't be as good. I realized, too, that, like, strangely, Top Gun Maverick, I feel like, is, like, taking that song and stretching it out over all of Act 2. Like, it actually has all the same beats of, like, here's this impossible task. Okay, none of them can do it. Then Tom Cruise gets kicked off the mission and then goes and does the impossible task. And now the rest of them can do it, too.
That's amazing.
I don't know how I realized that, but I was just like, oh, wait.
Except it takes 90 whole minutes for the middle act of that movie for that to happen.
You gotta do a video on that, dude. Where's that video? Let's
Maybe.
go.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I don't know if there's more to it than that. But, like, and it's still, like, that's still a fun thing. But, like, this does the same thing. And that's still a cool scene in Top Gun Maverick. But, like, it just hits so hard. And part of it is just that the song's really good. But also, like, the way that it's structured to, like, when you get to, like, Act 3 of the song and it cuts out the, like, instrumentals for a little bit, it just goes so hard. And it's like, purposeful for, like, what the scene is doing. So I think it's just really good to, like, be able to have the, like, structure of the song. And I don't know much about songwriting, but 2 other scenes that I think do a really good job of, like, having a song that kind of, like, structures itself around the scene. Defying Gravity, especially in the recent movie version, and the Leap of Faith, What's Up Danger scene from Spider-Verse. Like, imagine that scene without the music. Still good, but not the best scene ever like it is. And same with this. Like, you could do it without the song, but it's everything just gets elevated. My last point with this, and I'll throw it to you guys after this, but it made me think of what we talked about with Molly's Game last year, where we were saying, like, there's, like, those montages that come up a few times in that movie where there's, like, a bunch of stuff being shown visually, and also Jessica Chastain is giving this voiceover, and you could kind of do just one or the other, but because there's so much happening, you kind of need both. And I think it's just kind of nice sometimes in a setting like a musical where a more, like, adult geared movie might not be able to get away with something like this, but it's really nice that they just take the opportunity and then, like, bring it to 11. Sorry, I kind of commandeered that topic, but this song is just so damn good. Any of you guys can jump in on that.
I think Evan made all the points. I think we can go home.
Yeah, I don't know anybody who doesn't get hype singing once they hear the lyrics of the song and start singing. Like, every time I hear it, I'm ready to beat some Huns.
I've heard you do it on a couple of
comments. Oh,
yeah.
I've been singing this all week, like, at work and at home, and someone almost caught me. I'm like, nothing, I'm not doing anything.
You should have played it out loud.
I should have. I really should have.
I'm so happy. Like, I feel like a proud parent every time I see that it makes that third shift in the song when it's nighttime and she goes out, looks at the pole, and then it like everybody's coming out as the sun is rising. It shows she's been out there all night trying to climb the. Oh, it's such a good moment.
And when she falls down the pole a little bit before going, it's such a great little beat.
The look on her face too, where she just like rests her arms on her knees of like, yeah, I did this. It's so good.
Yeah, that shift works so well for the uplifting change for the end of the song. I also agree on the three act structure thing. Every time he mentions the theme of the song, Mr. I'll make a man out of you, somehow I'll make a man out of you, how could I make a man out of you, there's a shift. So yeah, and then you mentioned What's Up Danger. What's Up Danger is up there as far as like inspiring montage songs for sure for me. So
I think the visuals here also really like they emphasize like her failures at the beginning, but I think the way that they do it, it shows that like it really isn't like a physical thing. It's more of like the fact that like she's not learned how to fight her entire life. So every time she does succeed, and the fact that she succeeds so fast, it's all just based on her improvisational skill and pure motivation. And like it's not like she's going out in the middle of the night either and like doing extra training by herself. Like she's just so motivated during the actual training that by the time she actually gets to it, she proves that she's the best at this because she's working so hard. You know, like the one part that I always like is when her and Li Shang are fighting, and she finally knocks him down, and then he smiles because like that is like she just did it on her own. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, there's so many of those like stand up and cheer moments. I love the parallels to where they're carrying the like heavy things. And it's interesting, a lot of the tasks that we see in the training montage, we see them 3 times, right? Where we see them like fail and then succeed at the end. That one we actually only see twice, but it's a really fascinating like parallel where it's when he's going to send her home, right? Where we see them carrying those like heavy weights on the bamboo poles, and she stumbles and falls and faints essentially. And then he picks it up and he puts it on his shoulders also, and just gives her that like withering look of like, you are failing. And then at the very end, it's just the quickest thing, but we see her running ahead up and over the hill where she's out ahead of everybody carrying that same heavy load instead of trailing along at the end. And it's so triumphant and wonderful. The other thing that the story does, in addition to all of this amazing stuff, is it gives us a 3-act structure on her friendships as well, on the relationships between her and the other people that she's training with. Because it opens with the scene where he throws the poles, and you know they all catch one, and then Yao catches 2 and then uses the one to trip her, right? And she falls over, and then at the end he catches hers also, and he hands it to her with a smile like, here you go, pal. It's so great. Like all of these little moments, it's so simple, and it's just all of these little moments are conveying like we're all in the same boat at the beginning, but there's internal conflict and animosity. And like, you know, Shang is really running them hard and is disappointed in them. So nothing is going right for him, right? We also know what Shang has at stake in making the army into the best army it can be. And so like, he's failing. We see a little moment in the montage of like, I am going to fail if I can't figure this out with these trainees. And then as they're succeeding, the trust between him and them is being established. The trust among them together is being established. Like all this goodwill is being earned, all the success. It's just so well done. And each of those like snippets, I would be curious to see what like the longest one is, but there can't be any mini scene within that montage that's longer than, I don't know, 10 seconds at most.
It might even be 5.
It might even be 5
seconds.
I
think 5 is probably closer. It's just they're all so quick, but it shows how efficient it is. It does it all so well.
And it's funny too. It's also funny as hell. Like where the scene, my toddler laughs his head off every time Mulan goes to grab a fish out of the river and grabs Yao's foot. It's like for some reason so funny to him. And it is like there's so many of those little moments that are truly really funny, while also doing all this character and thematic and plot work that we're talking about.
It's a 3-minute song. I don't know how they did that. It's crazy.
Bonkers. I mean, and Evan, you mentioned Defying Gravity. I like that song too, and especially in the recent version, but it's 12 minutes long. Like, this
Yeah.
is a 3-minute song and it's doing this much narrative work. It's wonderful.
That's why it's 3 hours. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Listen,
not the only reason, but
the current phase we're in is Wicked, guys. That's the current
with your
phase we're
kids?
in.
Yeah.
Too
I've
many.
listened.
I have stuff to do. I can't be watching Wicked for 3 hours.
Listen, we would when we would listen to Mulan on the way to daycare, we would get to daycare, but after we had finished every song, because there's only 4 songs in Mulan. And then we'd listen to True to Your Heart or whatever, which is wild. I don't even want to talk about True to Your Heart, but we'd get all the way through the soundtrack basically before even getting to daycare. Now we're barely at Dancing Through Life. Maybe we're at Something Bad is happening in Oz, and we're all the way there because everything is so long. Anyway. The Wizard and I is 6 minutes long. Anyway.
Yeah, they're not short songs.
No, they are not.
I like how minimal they are with the songs here, honestly, because every song feels very organic in the way that they lead into it. I never feel like we're stopping to sing something, which I feel like a lot of the time in other Disney stuff. And maybe it's because I'm no fun, and I'm not the biggest fan of musicals.
Me neither.
But, that was my big issue with, the Aladdin remake when I saw it in theaters, was, I thought to myself, this would be so much better if there was just no singing. And I don't know why. But, it feels like they're pausing to go into it. Whereas here, every song feels like it's led into perfectly, and it leads out perfectly into the rest of the plot. Whether that's to create a tonal shift or to, move characters' arc forward. None of them feel shoehorned in. They feel like they were written after those scenes were written, or written to emphasize what was already starting.
And I love the last moment of singing in the whole thing, which is the last moment of A Girl Worth Fighting For. And it's just, they come upon the devastation. They don't even finish the song. And it's just the perfect signal of buckle up, everybody. This is about to be a different movie from here until the end. We are not going to have another musical would have a sad reprise of Reflections while she's sitting in the snow with her horse, but it has ceased to be that kind of a movie, right? The stakes are much too high and the disappointment is too great. It's not fun anymore. It's not light anymore. And it is still funny. And there are going to still be some moments of cheering, but there's a real sadness to it. And it's been a war movie for a little while at that point. And so it's just a hard switch. And, I bet you $10 that there is the sad reprise of Reflections that was written somewhere and they tried it in the movie and it did not work. And so they were just no, because when you just think about what you have, you don't need it and it doesn't fit anymore. And the movie just stops being a musical halfway through.
That was definitely their initial draft. I'm sure
Gotta
had an
be.
idea of okay, well the next song we'll do will be the last song we'll do will be this one. They probably also had a song during that ending ceremony, after she gets rewarded by the emperor or whatever,
or when she comes home to her dad, maybe.
Menace, where there's just the big musical score. I'm sure they had at least those, and there's no reason for it. Once that tonal shift happens, I feel like it would feel disingenuous to cut away to a song to basically tell you how the characters are feeling, rather than you just know because you have empathy for them at this point already.
I definitely don't need to hear I did not need to make a man out of you.
Also, an absolute banger of a score by Jerry Goldsmith. The score is amazing. The music, my kids are just as into, my older son is just as into listening to the score of movies as he is into the music.
I was not as a kid. We never did that with the Tarzan soundtrack. I was no, put it back on trash in the can.
We love Tarzan, man. We love Tarzan.
So
we love all movies like this. But the score too. And the score here is excellent. And it's also doing a lot of wonderful, I don't know, it's just creating so much texture for the world and creating momentum and themes, and just it's beautifully done.
I had one more thing I thought of with specifically I'll Make a Man Out of You, comparing it to other training montages, it's more true to how improving at a skill feels, I think, to have this internal change happen with it. Because if you compare that scene to a Rocky montage, or I don't remember the name of the song, but the one from Hercules is another Disney training montage musical. It's really just Rocky's doing a bunch of push-ups and he's running to the art museum, and that's pretty much it. There's no real moment like Mulan climbing the pole in that. And I feel like it just hits harder because when you're like, when you are training at something, whatever kind of skill it is, there often I think does need to be that like mental switch in some way to like make yourself good at it. It's not just carrying water up a hill, which is how they do it in the live action. But like,
There should be that victory moment, right?
well, it just doesn't hit as hard because it's like, well, now Rocky can do 70 push-ups where he used to be able to do 7. I don't know how many, but like, it's just less. It's less cathartic, and I think it's not really how it feels when you're struggling to improve at something. It's not usually just a physical struggle. It's an internal one where you have. It obviously depends on like what kind of skill you're talking about, but it's often not just like, can you push the thing harder? And I think a lot of like training montages, they're a little bit of a cliche at this point, but like maybe they would do well to take that note from this.
Yeah.
Creed 4 should do that.
I mean,
maybe.
just we've mentioned it earlier, but I think the moment with a pole is so pivotal because it's again like we are shown at the outset that Mulan is at a disadvantage when it comes to size, strength, typical soldier skills. But there is something that she offers this world that it doesn't already have. And that's her quick thinking and inventiveness. And so the moment with the pole changes the world around her a little bit. And it changes the army around her a little bit to value something that they hadn't previously valued. And I think it acts as a microcosm for the movie where we see, again, the journey of Mulan, the movie thematically is about acknowledging maybe there is something outside of our current value system that we have not assigned value to that we should reconsider. That's who Mulan is. She is someone that isn't neatly categorized. And what she brings to the table isn't something that they thought they needed, but they do. And that's what the sequence does. And like we see her improving in other ways. She gets, great at fighting and, carrying heavy things and all of this karate. But like that's not what makes it so triumphant. It's the way that she changes the army around her and her fellow trainees and Shang too, right? Like we see her impacting that, not just that impacting her. And that's what's unique about this, I think.
Yeah, it's not just like a personal journey where she is inspiring the rest of the army too. And
Yeah.
again, that's why like the music cutting out and the chanting in Act 3 of the song hits so hard because you've like got it paired with those visuals.
For sure.
Trisha, I am gonna get you out of here, but we do have a topic that we're gonna do. We had some people follow up with us about the Clue casts, like your dream cast for Clue. So we're gonna do that after you go. But thank you for coming on for this.
Of
if you want
course.
to plug yourself, plug Beyond the Screenplay or anything like that, this was great, and we weren't planning for it, but I'm glad you got here because clearly you have a lot
I
of
have
thoughts
so
about
much
this
to
movie.
say about Mulan. If you ever want to talk
great
about
having
any
you,
of the
honestly.
other, it's been a
You
blast.
have more thoughts than any of the rest of us had.
Yeah.
I've seen it more times. I guarantee. There's no way anyone here
Very
has seen it more
easily.
than I have.
And this might even be in one of the top 5 movies I've seen like most times, just because of how much I watched it as a kid. Anyway,
Yeah, I have nowhere to put these thoughts is the problem. Like I've seen every Disney animated movie so many times and I've nowhere to put these thoughts. Listen, I could talk about Cars 3 for like several hours and I have nowhere to put these thoughts. Anyway. Between ages 2 and 3, literally all my kid watched was Cars content. So I've seen it all. I have so many thoughts. Anyway, thank you for having me. Yeah, if anyone is interested in hearing more about me, you can hear thoughts like this. Actually, we have talked about Mulan before, but you can hear all kinds of stuff on Beyond the Screenplay, where I am a co-host. We do conversational analysis. It's a very similar show to this with my co-host, Michael Tucker, and my other co-host, Brian Bittner and Alex Calleros. That's wherever you get your podcasts. And then if you're interested in learning about what I'm doing, I'm at triciaaurand.com. You can check out my website. And yeah, I have a ton of stuff always going on. I had a Christmas movie that came out last year. I have another Christmas movie that's coming out this year, supposedly. I have a book that you can buy if you want to check out a nonfiction biography I wrote a few years ago. Lots of irons in the fire. So yeah, and you can follow me on social media as well.
All right, great. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All right. If you have to go, then we will move to the clue follow up then.
All right.
All right,
Take care,
cool.
guys. Thank you again.
I
Okay. So we had two people send in Dreamcast for Clue. So my mom sent in some picks after listening to ours, and we got some from Keith Moser, a Discord friend.
okay.
So I'm going to start off with my mom's picks because there's less of them. And I'm going to frame this with one exception. I said this to her when she sent them to me. But with one exception, I feel like this is the cast that would have been if the remake had come out in like 2005. So also these guys have not, I did not show them these answers beforehand. So her pick for Wadsworth, Johnny Depp, which I think makes sense.
Yeah.
If he wasn't in like the position he's in right now with like all the controversy, I think he may, especially like coming right off of Pirates, like 2005 Johnny Depp, I think.
Oh
would have
yeah,
been
because
pegged.
that would have been right after Pirates 2, or like the same time as Pirates 2. He would have been the first pick for sure.
And Willy
That's
Wonka.
a solid pick
Mm-hmm.
to me.
Yeah, I don't know if he's quite Tim Curry level, but I see it.
Nobody is
right.
for
Yeah,
Wadsworth.
because the
but-
thing is, like, this is just Tim Curry's like personality, right?
Mhm.
Or like who he usually is. If it was Johnny Depp, he'd be putting on a persona like he does with Jack Sparrow. You know what I mean? So it could even be a danger of it feeling too much like Jack Sparrow, if anything, if he hams it up a little too much. You know?
Maybe. Okay, yeah, so him, Matthew Broderick is Mr. Green. I can see that. It
I
also
can see that.
just scans as a pick that my mom would have. Susan Sarandon as Ms. Scarlet. I don't know
Okay.
her work quite as well, but
It works.
I think I see it. This is the only one that doesn't work for the 2005. Kate McKinnon as Mrs. Peacock.
Okay,
And I
yeah.
think I talked to her. She only really knows Kate McKinnon from Barbie, and given that, I can see that choice a lot more because I see her more as a White.
Didn't one of us say Kate McKinnon? I feel like I mentioned it at some point.
I know I had her as an honorable mention for White, but I don't remember if it was any of our picks. Maybe it was one of yours. I know it wasn't yours, Jelani, but yeah, this one I like a lot. Winona Ryder as Mrs. White, I think is pretty solid. In 2005, she would have been a little young, I think, for the part. Because I feel like Mrs. White's a little older. But, like, especially Winona Ryder, like, right now, I think would be good age for Mrs. White. And then, this one was brought up by one of my sisters, but Jeff Goldblum, she says, is Professor Plum. This is still my mom giving that pick, but I know one of my sisters suggested Jeff Goldblum as somebody. I can see that one, too. And then, I think we mentioned this before, but Will Ferrell is Colonel Mustard. I think that could work, too. So then Keith's picks. These first two I don't know. He did everyone also. The cook is I'm probably saying this wrong. Kayala Settle? Do you guys know her?
No idea who that is.
I'll take his word for it.
I recognize her face, but I don't, like, know her work much. Like, she was in The Greatest Showman. She's in the Wicked movies.
Okay.
I've seen her before. I just don't remember where I would have, like, actually watched her performances, you know?
Okay, and then he says the motorist is Robert Davey, or Davy. I don't know him either. These other ones I do know, though, and I think he's got some good ones here. The Singing Telegram Girl. He has big cameo, Taylor Swift.
Okay.
And he says that's in keeping with the original casting, as Jane Wiedlin of the Go-Go's apparently is her in the actual movie. So I guess just having a musical artist there.
Real quick, going back, Robert Davi is one of the Fratellis in The Goonies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You know him if you saw his face. Yeah, I think he's the
I
taller
think I
one.
know who you're talking about now.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. At least visually, I think he does look a lot like that
Yeah.
guy.
And then, I mean, as musical cameos go, Taylor Swift is fine.
These next two I really like. The cop, he has Tracy Morgan. That is not hard
That's
to see at
solid.
all.
That's solid.
Yes.
I think that works very well with his personality. This might be my favorite of his picks. Mr. Body, he has John Hamm. I think that is perfect.
Didn't one of us have John Hamm somewhere?
One of us had John Hamm somewhere. I feel like John Hamm
Did
got
he?
mentioned somewhere.
Oh. I don't remember him coming up. I must have just flubbed that. I think
John
he would
Hamm
be
is
great
great.
as Mr. Body, though.
Honestly,
He'd have to be
John
used
Hamm
a
is
lot more.
fantastic.
In my
He
opinion,
really should
he'd have
be.
to
He's
be
a good
used.
comedic actor. That's the
He
thing
is.
too. When they let him be either like comedic or even just like a little over the top villain, he works so well. Like Baby Driver is one of those
Baby
that I
Driver.
really enjoyed him in. Like he got brought up a lot in that because he was, he like it showed like he can go a little nuts and it's great. He doesn't need to just be Don Draper all the time.
Mm-hmm. He's in a lot of movies where he's not in it very much, though. Like, there's just he'll make like not quite cameos, but he'll be like surprisingly small parts in a lot of things. So I feel like this would kind of be a role he might take as well. Yvette, he has Sydney Sweeney, which I think every studio executive would agree with.
Everyone's like, "Yep, let's do it."
Yeah,
put
I
her
don't
in
know.
everything.
I haven't seen her in much, so I'm not sure if she'd be a good pick for that. This one I was considering. Anna Kendrick as Miss Scarlet. I don't think I mentioned that, but I was considering that when I was coming up with it.
Okay.
Colonel Mustardy as Jonah Hill. I see that one. I think that could work.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
This one grew on me. I didn't like it at first, but he has Andrew Garfield as Mr. Green.
Yes.
I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
Anytime Andrew Yep. You got it.
He's got the
Andrew Garfield's
faces
Miss
too.
Scarlet?
I can see him doing the like I didn't kill her, like in a very different way than it's done in the original. But I think he could pull that off quite well. Professor Plummy is Andy Samberg. He was my Wadsworth, but yeah, I think he could do Plum.
He would really make Plum funny. He would make
I could see
Plum
that.
a lot funnier than he was. Like, no offense to how he was written or Christopher Lloyd, but I could see that.
Yeah. Especially Andy Samberg got some really good, just like comedic timing, just
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the best comedians, and he just like I don't know. I think he's the good Ryan Reynolds, but I won't dive into that take right now.
I know what you mean. I kind of agree.
There's something about it. Mrs. White, he has Emma Stone. I think that works.
He has
I can see
Andrew
that.
Garfield and Emma Stone in the.
Yeah,
So, this should be connected to Spider-Man.
somehow.
Clue,
But it always
they're
is with
solving. They're solving the Green Goblin's murder.
Oh man,
Ooh.
then what's his name? Dennis O'Hare has to show up out of nowhere in a cameo. He has to be the evangelist at the end. Like, I know you're
Who?
dating my daughter. The guy who played Captain Stacy in Spider-Man.
Oh yeah. I can't think of his name either.
Well, I think it was Dennis O'Hare. I think.
Dennis
Yeah.
O'Leary. That's it.
O'Leary.
Is it Dennis O'Leary? Okay, his
Or
name
Dennis
is definitely
Leary.
Dennis.
No, it's
I know
not
that.
O'Leary. It's Dennis Leary. Right.
Dennis
Okay.
Leary, yes.
Yeah.
Dennis Leary. Okay, Dennis Leary. That's right.
Yeah. Now, but now I'm thinking of Willem Dafoe as a potential Wadsworth, which could be.
Wadsworth. Oh my God, yes.
I would like to see
That would
him
be
try it out.
He 100% has the energy for that.
He just walks up behind Andrew Garfield. He's like, back to
man.
formula.
See, you killed Mr. Body, Spider-Man.
But you didn't attack his heart. You associated with some communists, you know? I'm something of a communist myself. I think he'd be good beyond the memes, too, though. Like, I think he might be a good Wadsworth.
Yeah,
He writes some of them himself, I feel like.
A word to the not so wise about your little revolver. 1 + 2 + 1 + 1.
Spider-Man mentioned again.
Yep. Last two, he has Wadsworth as Simon Pegg. I think one or two of us mentioned that one.
Yeah,
I feel like I might have mentioned Simon Pegg.
yeah.
He was on my
maybe it
short
was you,
list. I think, yeah. We definitely brought him up, though.
One of us
I can
definitely
see
did
it.
mention Simon, but yeah, so Simon Pegg would be a good choice.
And then his last one, Melissa McCarthy as Mrs. Peacock. This is the only one I slightly disagree with. I see where he's coming from.
She has the energy for it.
She has the energy.
Yeah, and I like
but-
Melissa McCarthy. I think it's down to if you like her or not.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
I'm a little bit anti Melissa McCarthy. She just doesn't vibe with me like that. But here's my main issue with it: is like she's a talented performer. That's not the problem. Has she ever shown that she really has chemistry with anyone though? Because I feel like everything that she's in, she's kind of just doing her own thing. Like
Bridesmaids?
even I feel like even in Bridesmaids, like she's not really bouncing off the other characters. Maybe I just forgot because it's been a while since I've seen it, but I don't feel like I've ever seen her like share a scene well. She tends to kind of like take over, which is why she's able to like headline movies. But I don't know if I've ever seen her like have good scene chemistry with someone.
Identity Thief. I'm trying to think of like where she's like had a co-lead. Identity Thief.
Yeah, because Identity Thief is
she was in
because
The Heat.
Jason Bateman.
Yeah, maybe she does in The Heat, but
I didn't see The Heat. I'm just guessing.
Me neither. Anyway, thank you guys for sending in those picks. Other
thank
people,
you.
feel free to continue sending them, but these were some good picks.
Solid.
Our upcoming episodes, we're going to do The Green Knight next, which I'm excited about. It's Angel's pick. And then Prince of Egypt, which I'm also excited about.
I'm so hyped for Prince of Egypt, bro.
Prince of Egypt's going to be really good.
Another great late 90s 2D animated movie.
I thought it was early 2000s, no?
I think it might be the same year as Mulan.
That was 99, I think.
Oh.
I'm going to look it up. I think they might be the same year.
98. Oh, 98, same as Mulan.
Wow.
98 was a good year for animation, I guess.
That's crazy.
Those will be next. We have our YouTube channel. The IP mashup ranking video is there, I think, since the last time we recorded.
We have the 2 YouTube channels.
Yes, the 2 YouTube channels. The one that you're possibly watching this on, and then the one with the video essays. There should be links in the bottom. There will be a link at the end. And we have our Patreon with bonus episodes. We should be getting the Tangents one up there soon. I haven't bothered uploading it yet. Yeah, we've got our Discord. You can join us there and tell us your clue picks. We're also on Blue Sky and Instagram at INTAnalysisPod. I am on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Ev_West. And where are you guys?
It's not too late to keep... I'm honestly fine if anybody listening wants to keep sending clue picks. Like, I'm all for listening to recast every couple of episodes or whatever.
Absolutely.
Because those are fun to listen to. I'm on Instagram, Jelani T. Kelly, YouTube, Jelani T. Kelly, Actors Access, Jelani T. Kelly. I was just on set, just as an extra, 2 days ago. That was fun. I just got I was in Colombia, the KFC commercial. I just sent it to Evan and Angel.
Yes.
It came out pretty damn good. So
Deserves an Oscar.
If you want to see... Well, you plug it. Sorry.
If y'all want to hire me for your film projects, Actors Access, Jelani T. Kelly.
If you need someone to explode into chicken breading dust, he's your guy. He did it spectacularly, and I'm going to be turning that into a GIF and using it
Please do.
all the time. Please do. Okay.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the GIF version of it.
We gotta just send it randomly on like other Discords too, without context.
Yeah, we'll figure
Just
it
send
out.
it randomly without context to people.
I'm gonna do it
send
all
to
the
my
time.
contacts. Yeah.
It's so fun. Yeah. Okay. Angel, where are you at?
Oh yeah, so I'm on Instagram and I think also Blue Sky at AngelsArc15. I'm also on Letterboxd at Serenity Cinema, and then Evan, you just plugged our INT Instagram, so I think we're good on that. So yeah, feel free to send me gifs of Jelani exploding into chicken dust whenever it pleases you.
Yeah. All right. And thanks again to Tricia for coming on. And
Yeah, big thanks to Tricia.
We'll see you guys next time.